Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you earned here tonight. One game. If we played them 10 times, they might win 9. But not this game. Not tonight.
What a highlight! Mind your manners, what a catch! This place is gonna rock! How good is this going to be? My oh!
You're now watching College Football Frenzy. Here are your hosts, J.J. Seglio and Jake Marino.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of College Football Frenzy. You might be wondering, where you guys been? We've been very busy the last 6 weeks. We apologize for not being able to produce consistently. A bunch of the episodes got scrapped. So, yeah, here we are. Jake, how you been, man? It's been a long time since we did one of these.
It's been a lot getting caught up on college work, but I'm glad we're back, and I'm ready to talk about more college football. What about you?
It took way too long, but it's good to be back.
Yes, sir.
And if you got a problem with my hat, I really don't care. Anyway, without further ado, let's get this bad boy rolling. There's a lot of craziness that happened in the world of college football on Saturday, but let's take it back to when it started in the daytime. There was a top 5 matchup that everyone was excited about. I dubbed it Game of the Week, and it was a fun stream. We went just over about 3.5 hours calling the game, but for the 8th time in a row, Ohio State beat Penn State. Penn State just cannot beat this team. I don't know what it is, but it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's truly like a father-son relationship between Ohio State and Penn State. What did you think after watching this?
Well, it was a homecoming game for Will Howard, and I'm glad that he got to show, Penn State, who he really is, and I thought he balled out. And it was a good showing for Ryan Day, because he always wins those big games. And
you mean he always loses those big games?
He won this big game, so and
barely.
I think Franklin is he can't win a big game to save his life. So that's
Franklin mixed up with Ryan. To be honest, neither of them can win big games. So I'm honestly impressed to see any of them winning a big game.
Well, Ryan Day just won that big game.
I know, it's a first.
And
he always wins the Penn State games, but he can't beat Michigan.
Penn State's a little brother of Ohio State.
Yeah, and it's actually funny that I mentioned Michigan because there's a saying that they have that Michigan came up with. They have this saying, Colson Loveland said a few weeks ago, little bro stay doing little bro things. And I think that's truly the way that Ohio State feels about Penn State. But if we're going to look at the actual numbers of this game, Penn State did not play a bad football game defensively. I mean, you saw it. Zion Tracy had a pick 6 in the first quarter. They were up 10-0. They were cruising.
After that, I thought Will Howard came out and really slowed down the game. And just, like I said before, he balled out. And it was a dogfight from both teams.
Absolutely. It was good Big Ten football, trench warfare. And I want to give a special shout I tried to tell people that Ohio State running back duo is off the charts. Quinshon Judkins put 14 for 95. Travion Henderson, 10 for 54. And a pretty good day from Jeremiah Smith. Brandon Innes and Emeka Ibuka had themselves a solid day. But the real creativity in my mind was Ohio State. They came out and pulled out all the tricks out of the bag. Will Howard's out here evading sacks from Abdul Carter like it's nothing. And you're now in a situation where you're watching this college football powerhouse that is Ohio State once again going into Beaver Stadium, one of the most hostile environments in the country, and winning again. And I think you and I should definitely talk about this. Do you really think that Penn State's offense is as bad as they are, or do you think that James Franklin is way over his head? Because I think James Franklin's way over his head.
I agree with you, and I don't think, they stalled out this week, but I'm sure they're going to get it back next week.
They better get it back next week. I want to talk about, we're going to stick with this game for a little bit longer. I want to talk about that red zone possession. They're down by 7 points, and they somehow, some way lost that. They somehow, some way messed that up. Do you think that there was a lot of frustration going on with Penn State? The fact that I don't understand the play calling. You have Nick Singleton, who's one of the best running backs in the country. But for 3 plays in a row, you have an offensive lineman motioning out wide to block for Nick Singleton. First time, sure, whatever. But you have a guy, Tyler Warren, who, by the way, was Penn State's leading rusher on the day. I don't want to say that's embarrassing, but it is 100% embarrassing when your tight end is your leading rusher. Seriously.
3 carries for 47 yards.
How do you not give him a direct snap at the goal line? And then on 4th and goal, you come out in shotgun and you throw the ball into double coverage? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, that's what we're all thinking. But you also got to give credit to Ohio State. Their defense played I think they played perfect in the second half.
I agree. That defense is something else. They only gave up 3 points the whole game. Cody Simon had 10 tackles on the day. Sonny Styles had 9. Lathan Ransom in his return had 7. JT Tuamualau had another great day. They didn't really get that much pressure on Will Howard, except for obviously Abdul Carter, because Abdul Carter stays doing Abdul Carter things. He's one of the best defensive ends in the country. But again, not too much to be seen from Penn State, and just another frustrating loss for the Nittany Lions, as that makes it 8 in a row that Ohio State has won against Penn State. Now, the next game that I want to talk about is another 12 o'clock game. You were I would have thought you would have been at this game, but it turns out that you had other things to do, and you got to witness this. Unfortunately, not at Mikey, but you got to see it on the screen back at the house. Army wins the Commander-in-Chief's game, their 2nd win in a row against Air Force. Tell me about it.
They got terrible news 90 minutes before the game that their star quarterback, Bryson Daly, has not been practicing all week, and he was ruled inactive. So junior Dwayne Coleman had to step up, and although they didn't look good for the first half, they really came out, and Kanye Udo really propelled this offense to have 158 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I saw that. Kanye Udo, one of the better running backs in the group of 5, and someone that people aren't really familiar with, because obviously some could say he gets overshadowed by Tyrell Robinson. Others think that that's a bit of an outrageous statement, but Army's ground game is honestly just as good as their passing attack. This is a legit top 25 opponent. The problem is they haven't played anyone, so they really don't pass the eye test, if you want, in my honest opinion.
I agree. They really haven't played anybody that really stood out, but all those wins have been blowouts. And I thought coming in the season, their defense was going to be a little shaky in the secondary, but last week they gotten 3 takeaways, all from the secondary group: Max DiDomenico, Jaden Mays, and Casey Larkin, who have been really playing ball for the past 3 weeks for them.
Mm-hmm. And it's agonizing when not only are you losing to Army, but you're losing to their backup quarterback. That's really unfortunate. Now, you told me that Army is a big game coming up against North Texas. Well, they're most likely without Bryson Daly. We'll get to that in a minute. But the next game I want to talk about is another 12 o'clock showdown. This game was a lot better than I expected it to be. Why? Because the Miami Hurricanes don't play defense, but their offense is so good, there's really not much to be said. Isaiah Restrepo and Cam Ward, you could argue they're the best duo in the entire country. I mean, the stuff that those guys do is just absolutely unbelievable. Seriously.
It's ridiculous. Cam Ward throwing for 400 yards. That's unbelievable.
How are you not entertained? They don't play defense, but how are you not entertained? This man is, if there's a specific award, which there is for quarterbacks, Cam Ward wins this in a landslide. I wouldn't put him as my Heisman favorite because of how dominant Ashton Genty's been, but screw Travis Hunter. This is my number 2 for sure. I think it's between Ward and Genty. 25 for 41, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 94.2 QBR. And what's even more impressive about this man is, have you seen Cam Ward in the pocket? The dude will just stand there, evade defenders while just.
He's got the 3 C's: cool, calm, and collective. He's just like very nonchalant and very cool the way he moved in the pocket.
And he just slings it. He doesn't care who's open. He will just throw it down the field and magically creating a wide open option for Restrepo, Jacoby George, or a lot of other guys. That's what makes Cam Ward such an amazing quarterback, in my opinion. And Miami fans were very pumped up when they got him in the transfer portal. And they have every right to be excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
They got themselves a superstar.
They did it, but I also want to highlight Duke. I mean, they're having a decent year. They're 6-3, but Malik Murphy, he didn't play that bad either. He had 325 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, but he did have 3 interceptions, but really costed them the game. I'm pretty sure a couple of those came late in the game too.
And Peyton Jones for Duke had himself a solid day, 12 carries, 71 yards. Samir Hagans had 9 catches, 139 yards. Jordan Moore had 5 catches for 75 yards with a touchdown. Duke had this game won, and I'm sure that head coach Manny Diaz is a little bit aggravated the fact that he had the chance to beat his former team, the Miami Hurricanes, and then not only had a 28-17 lead, but completely choked it away in the process.
But they never quit until the final whistle was blown. But it was a good showing for Duke.
Yeah, but this Miami team that has grit. They have determination. They have star power and a lot of star power. And unfortunately, star power is how you win nowadays in college football. I mean, look at Ohio State's almost $2 million offense.
Powerhouse.
NIL. And you know what's another powerhouse? Or what was a powerhouse that we thought could have done something? You remember watching this team at the start of the season. You remember them as the season went on. But how dominant was Texas A&M going into that South Carolina game?
They I don't know. I got mixed feelings about this game.
No, I'm saying leading up to the game.
Oh, well,
when Texas A&M went on that win streak.
Well, leading up to it, they looked dominant. They're, 6-2?
Yep.
And I don't know what happened. It just fell off.
6-1. They had no losses.
Yeah.
And they were doing
6-1.
so
That's
good.
right. 6-1.
With the one loss being to Notre Dame. And now all of a sudden, us Notre Dame fans are like, holy crap, Texas A&M might help us get into the top 10.
And yeah, that really did help, right? Because Notre Dame did have a bye this week.
Yeah, it looked like they had the opportunity of a lifetime going into a house like South Carolina, which is a tough road environment, and getting a major win. Unfortunately for them, they did not just lose this game. They got ran over by the Gamecocks. This was never a close game.
South Carolina controlled this from the start. I mean, they went up 14 early.
They were just absolutely cruising. And it shows with the numbers. I mean, Lenore Sellers, have yourself a day. 13 for 27, 244, 2 touchdowns. Raheem Sanders, have yourself an even better day. 20 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hell, Lenore Sellers had 106 rushing yards. Total just under 400 all-purpose yards. He finally had his statement win as the quarterback of South Carolina. And South Carolina has their statement win. They have struggled so much at beating a legitimate SEC opponent. Well, they have one now. They beat the red-hot Texas A&M.
They did.
And it was never close from the start.
Nope.
You know, it was another game that was never close from the start. There was a homecoming game in a nice little school in Texas that they call Southern Methodist. They were playing against Pitt, undefeated Pitt, 2 ACC teams that could really make some noise. And what we saw was what the kids nowadays like to call BTA. SMU
Absolute
killed
dominance.
this team.
I mean, Pitt humiliated Syracuse the week before, and then now they're
that game
high.
was a nightmare. By the way, that game was an absolute nightmare.
That was terrible. But riding high, entering SMU, who is playing with their back against the wall, trying to maybe have an ACC championship, appearance, and they absolutely dominated Pitt.
And it was never even close from the jump. I mean, you want to talk about ground game. Brashard Smith, 23 carries, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns. His longest run was 71 yards. You know it's bad when Kevin Jennings is out here playing almost better than Eli Holstein. And Eli Holstein wasn't bad on the day. He had really one bad interception, but then he got injured, and then Nate Yarnell came in, and then all hell broke loose for Pitt because the injury to Holstein is huge, and I wish him a speedy recovery, but this is the worst thing that could have happened if you are SMU or not SMU, Pitt. Still, it sucks. The fact that you got absolutely mauled and then you lose your quarterback. Not to mention the passing game for the Mustangs. Matthew Hibner, 3 catches, 108 yards, and 80-yard score. I mean, SMU just went all gas, no brakes on this team, and it shows. Shout out the Mustangs. They are currently now slotted, I believe, to play in the ACC championship game as of right now. But you know,
it's theirs to lose.
It's theirs to lose. No? But the ACC, and I say that because as of last Saturday, the ACC is officially turned upside down because we had one more big upset in the conference. The Clemson Tigers losing at home to Louisville. No one saw this coming at all.
Oh.
You know it's bad when Cade Klubnik has to throw 56 passes and he only gets 228 yards. The dude averaged 4.1 yards a pass. Phil Maffa wasn't awful. He had 30 carries, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. But it was something about Clemson's their passing game was just flat. I mean, they couldn't really do anything at all. And it shows with how flat they came out in that second quarter. They were down 17-7 because they had been outscored 14-skunk.
Well, I think it was a slow start for both teams. You know, just looking at the game log, it was a 7-3 game in the first quarter, but you know, second quarter, Louisville really turned it around, gave themselves a 10-point lead going into halftime with confidence, and then after that, they really just they tacked on the field goals, and then at the end of it, it's getting a little too much for Clemson to try to make a comeback late in the game.
It just kept happening because Louisville just kept pouring it on. I mean, hell, at one point they were up, pretty sure it was 26-7, and it was just too little, too late for Clemson. It's bad enough when you may have went down 33-14, but they maybe scored in garbage time. But like, that's not a recipe for success if you're trying to be an ACC contender. I think we could all agree we were 100% wrong about Cade Klubnik. This dude sucks.
I thought I saw him play last year. I thought he was going to be good this year, and I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing the hype anymore around him.
I never saw the hype to begin with. But anyway, there's one final game that we want to talk about, and to me, I want to say this game shocked me, but it really didn't. There's a lot of frauds out there in the CFP world, but I don't think there is any, as of right now, bigger than Iowa State losing at home to Texas Tech. What did you think about that game?
I was surprised that I'm not surprised Iowa State blew that game, but I'm surprised how hard the other team fought. Like Texas Tech, Texas Tech, they were 5-3 going into that. They weren't really having their year, but they really stuck it to the end and had that 5-yard run to help them take over Iowa State.
They played pretty well. I mean, Barron Morton 21 for 40, 2 touchdowns, 237. Taj Brooks continuing his reign of dominance over the Big 12 with 25 for 122. Josh Kelly 8 for 127, 2 touchdowns. The dude's averaging 16 yards a catch. I mean, they could not cover him and save their life. Rocco Beck did not look terrible, but I feel like more of the blame resides on the defense. Iowa State's defense looked flat today. They got a couple of fumbles, but at what cost? I mean, seriously, they just did not have it today. No turn. I'm pretty sure they have like 2 turnovers the entire game. It was brutal. Yeah, you cannot win if you cannot win games like this where you're being outplayed without winning the turnover battle. That's just common sense as a college football fan. When you're
No.
being, and a football fan in general, when you're being outplayed, you must win the turnover battle. Period. End of discussion. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the roundup of last week's college games. So I think we're all happy that we can say this. The AP polls are officially gone. I say good riddance. I'm so over the AP polls and all the disrespect some of these teams are getting. And now we're finally going to talk about the big dogs. The CFP rankings just came out. Let's take a little deep dive. The top 12 does not matter. We're here to look at 13 through 25. Is there anything here that you would change looking at these rankings and the bottom 13?
I'm not gonna lie. I don't understand why Colorado's at number 20. I don't. I think Missouri and Colorado should switch, despite the 2 losses Missouri has. But I think they played pretty well, Missouri.
Yeah.
So
My thing with Missouri is they've been blown out in a bunch of games, and I think that's really concerning if you're a Missouri fan. Those blowouts against Alabama and
A&M, yeah. But other than that, I think everything else is. I think the committee did a great job of, it's the first week of this, so I don't think this is gonna stand. It's gonna be completely different, but in like 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a wild ride if we're being completely honest. And if we look further into this, I do see a lot of frauds on here. But the one team that I want to talk about that's really shocking me is how they're up here is, honestly, Washington State. I'm not buying into the hype with Wazoo. I love Wazoo, but I don't see the hype. I really don't. That's my concern with Wazoo is they've had some good games, don't get me wrong, but should they really be in this position when their only good win, I guess you could say, was technically against
Texas
Fresno State and technically against Texas Tech? That Texas Tech win was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but are they really a top 20 team?
I was gonna let you get after that because now I'm looking at it. I really don't see anything that really catches my eye than the other teams behind them.
I agree. I think you can honestly put Louisville over them. I think you could put Clemson over them. I think you could put Missouri over them, but you can't put Army over them. They're in the exact same position as Washington State.
They are in the same boat as them, but the only difference is that they are 8-0. They're undefeated. It's pretty hard to go undefeated through the first 8 weeks. I mean, you're already what?
Just ask your other military comrades how well that went for them when they played a real team. Unfortunately, I think Army's going to suffer the same fate, but we'll get to that later. But looking more into this, I feel like I'm proud that SMU is finally getting the respect they deserve. This is a good team. I said they could potentially win the ACC if Florida State and Miami don't win it. Because I'm going to be honest, I think we all thought Florida State would be 1-8.
I did not see that coming. I thought they're losing, half their guys, Jordan Travis, but I didn't think they were going to be this terrible.
I will say, you sold me on Army. I did not think they were going to be 8-0. I did not think they'd be this good. I thought they'd be good, but not this good. I thought maybe 6-2 around this point, but 8-0 in the top 25. Are you kidding me? Shout out Army.
Listen, they're playing their tails off right now. I mean, it's fun watching them every week go out and fun, and they have the next man up mentality, and that really shows how deep they are. And
they are very well.
They're very disciplined. Very disciplined.
They are. Now the next
coaches get into them.
Next team that I want to look at is LSU, ranked at number 15. I feel like this is a little bit high. Who has LSU beat? Seriously, who? I'm looking at the schedule. I think the only good win they had was honestly against Ole Miss. I mean, seriously.
That's the
I'm
same
not
thing.
buying it.
I'm thinking the same thing. I mean, you lost to USC by a touchdown. All right, first week, it is what it is.
You got the
Hey, you
jitters.
beat, you beat South Carolina, who did just upset A&M, right?
That
And just
kind of
after
looked,
that,
yeah.
after that,
Nothing.
yeah, you got Ole Miss, and there's really nothing else here. I'm
A
seeing
lot
that
of
really catches my
nothing.
eye.
It's definitely a good thing that they are ranked over Ole Miss, because if they were ranked under Ole Miss, we might have a problem. But that USC loss is coming back to haunt LSU, and I can almost guarantee you that. I don't see the hype with this team. We'll get to it in a minute, but I'm expecting Alabama to demolish this team. But we'll see how it goes. But we're going to get into that in a little bit. I think that is there any team that you want to discuss before we take a look at the top 12?
I mean, I think you really, I mean, now thinking about it, you really can't rank teams under 12, Like, I mean, it's pretty hard, or above 12. It's pretty hard to figure out, who should be 12, who should be 13, who should be 14, and just, going down. I mean, they all kind of have similar strength scheduled opponents who really haven't been that good, but,
This
it's really
12
hard to
team
determine.
playoff. This
Yeah.
12 team playoff is going to
And
be awesome.
And like I said before, it's only the first week of this. I'm sure things are going to change within the next few weeks for multiple teams.
Oh, brace yourselves. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive into the top 12. This is what we got. SMU, A&M, first teams out. Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana, BYU, Notre Dame, Alabama, Boise State. I'm going to let you go first because I have a lot of things that I'm going to vent on with this, but I'm going to let you go first. Let me know if you got any sort of disagreement with this, because I got a bunch of gripes with these rankings.
I'm just going to say, if Indiana loses, I'm going to ask you a question. If Indiana loses to Michigan, what are your thoughts about them?
They're down to like 22. Honestly,
you think they're dropping that low?
They will fall out so bad because Michigan has been so rickety this year. I mean, I'm not going to say that I didn't expect this, but no one thought Michigan would be losing to goddamn Illinois. Seriously. Oregon and Texas is one thing, but Illinois? Like, what are we doing here? Michigan came out flat from the jump, and it shows. And if they can beat Indiana, that might be enough to kick Indiana out of the entire top 20, maybe even top 25.
I'm still giving credit to, Indiana's head coach. He's done a heck of a job there so far. But Michigan's got nothing to play for. They're playing for a bowl game, but they're gonna try to come out and ruin Indiana's season.
And I'm pretty sure you may have to look at this, but I'm almost positive that game is at the Big House, or is it in Bloomington?
I think it's at the Big House.
I'm gonna just fact check real quick. Nope, it's in Bloomington.
Is it in Bloomington? All right.
It's in Bloomington, so that makes this a must-win game for Indiana.
That's also, another factor. Michigan got to go into Bloomington and got to show out, and just take care of business.
Yeah, I agree. So there's a lot of gripes I have with this college football playoff. And the first gripe that I have is simple, and you're going to hate me for this. Well, I don't know. You might not hate me for this, but I want to talk about Penn State. I think Penn State is one of the most fraudulent teams in the country. They're ranked at number 6. They lost to Ohio State. Who have they beat? Illinois, who just lost to Minnesota? I mean, do you really think that this is a top 10 team that says they're playing Notre Dame right now? Call me biased. Notre Dame demolishes Penn State.
And
Mauls them.
Normally, you know how I like to go against you, but I really like Notre Dame. But despite that loss against NIU, I think they really turned it around. And if they do get the chance to play to Penn State in Happy Valley, they will absolutely destroy them.
I hope it's flipped and it's at Notre Dame Stadium. That'd be awesome.
Well, that would be probably the best scenario for Notre Dame.
I agree. I don't want to go to Happy Valley, but I think Penn State's incredibly fraudulent, and they will never beat a big team until James Franklin's can't. The second team that I want to vent about, and people already know this is coming. I've said so many negative things about them all this year. I'm going to rip this team to shreds when they finally lose a game, and that is the fraudulent number 4 team in the country, the Miami Hurricanes. Again with Penn State. Who have they beat? But let's be realistic here. The difference between Miami and Penn State is Penn State plays defense. Miami's defense is one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in the country. And seriously, who have they beat? Penn State's beat Illinois. They play Ohio State. The Hurricanes don't play a single ranked team the entire season. Their first ranked game would be the ACC Championship. I am so serious when I say that. You can look at their schedule. As good as Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo, Mark Fletcher, David Martinez, Christian Arroyo are, they got to be a ranked team if you're going to rank them in the top 5. Period. End of story.
No, I can't agree more. But I do want to talk about BYU. I mean, looking at their schedule, they really have been going. I mean, most of these wins have really been crazy. I mean, you're beaten. I mean, you're not. They haven't really been keeping it. Haven't really been separating their wins, but they've really been really turning it around in the fourth quarter as all these games were close. Besides the Arizona one, but Retzlaff has been balling for BYU, and I just wanted to point that out that he really has been doing a good job over there.
Yeah. That's BYU has themselves an amazing team. They have a great coaching staff. I also think BYU is a little bit fraudulent, but I mean, they have unlike Miami and Penn State, BYU has the resume. They have some really good wins this year. Let's take a look.
They beat Kansas State by
crushed Kansas State.
Absolutely
beat SMU, which now looks better and better. Beat Oklahoma State. That wasn't amazing. Went into Baylor and won. This BYU team is legit, and I'm ready to see them in the Big 12 championship against.
They got a legit shot of winning out for the rest of the year. I mean, yeah, you got to play Utah. Is Cam Rising back, or is he done for the year?
I think Cam Rising's done for the year.
Is he? All right. So yeah. All right. So you got to play Utah without Cam Rising. You got Kansas, and Kansas, they're hit or miss. They're hot and cold once in a while. You're playing at Arizona State, and then you have Houston, Houston's playing for nothing. So I'm sure that should be a walkthrough for them.
Yeah,
crazy things have happened before.
You would think that, but anyway, the next team that I want to talk about, and honestly, people are gonna love me for this one, and I need to vent on this team, and it's the Alabama Crimson Tide. How is this team in the top 12? Seriously, I know the committee is SEC biased, and there's nothing we can do about that. That's just the way they are. But you cannot be serious if you're telling – sorry if my mouse is cracked up. You cannot tell me that Alabama this season is a top 12 team in the country. Let's dive into their resume real quick. They have some good games, but not a lot of them. They started off almost perfect. The win against Georgia might be the only reason they're somewhat relevant. You then lose to Vanderbilt. You almost lose to friggin' South Carolina. You then lose to Tennessee again, and you crush Missouri. Cool, whatever. Alabama's good. Don't get me wrong, but they're not a top 12 team by any measure, and they should be 15 or 16, period.
I disagree. The one you got to give Vanderbilt credit here. I mean, Diego, what's his name? Diego Pavia.
Pavia.
Yeah, Pavia. He really turned it around for this team, and you see. I've been watching him, since New Mexico. He really was there, and I'm glad he's having an opportunity now.
He made New Mexico fun to watch.
He did, and who would have thought? I've been watching New Mexico late at night, but you went through a really tough. You really went through a tough. Let's say 4 week. A month. You had Georgia number 2. That was must win, and then Vanderbilt, who were they ranked at the time?
Vanderbilt was unranked at the time.
All right, so maybe you lost out on it, but South Carolina, that's always a dogfight, but losing to Tennessee really screwed you over. But, I still thought that they really been playing good ball. And then beating Missouri really helped their case. But
The game against LSU is either going to save their season or be the dagger. Simple as that, because they ain't letting no 3-loss team in the playoffs. Even
No,
if
they
it's
won't.
Alabama.
They won't.
That is just not happening.
Committee won't let that slide.
But honestly, I really don't have that many gripes. I know that you and I were hoping and praying that Boise State loses the Mountain West Conference Championship, Army ends up winning the American, and they'll somehow sneak into the playoff. Is there any team in this playoff that you think Army can give a legitimate fight against? Anyone?
God, I love being an Army fan, but I just think they're not, they're too overpowered.
I think honestly, you'll give a fight against what's it called? BYU. They have a good defense, but that offense is so inconsistent.
It is very hard to stop the run, but I feel like once you have it, if you have weeks preparing for it, then it's pretty tough, and I don't see them having a shot.
That's what makes
I wish they did.
Special.
But hey, they got Notre Dame in 3 weeks, so that'll be a good test, especially if Bryson Daly's back.
It's gonna be a welcome to big time football. Anyway, That's gonna do it for the CFP rankings. So as tradition, there's no sort of show on Empire Sports Media without our infamous college pick'em. We have a few games that we're gonna go a little bit deeper into. This is week number 11. I can't believe we're already at week 11. We only have 4 weeks left if you count week 11. Without further ado, let's get right into it, starting off with the Navy Midshipmen against the South Florida Bulls.
So South Florida had a big win against FAU last week, and Navy, after the 5-hour delay in Rice, really that's a really tough blow. Just waiting there all morning just to play at night is pretty tough.
And now their hopes of making the conference championship are dead unless Tulane, they beat Tulane. They somehow lose twice.
Yeah, I mean, it is really a tough blow for this Navy team. I mean, Brian Newberry has been doing a great job for them. And, that those back-to-back losses are really, skull crushing. So hopefully, I know I'm against Navy, but I think they're going to pull this out in the USF.
Got to win this one against South Florida. This game is probably going to determine their season. I'm going Navy. Shout out Eli Heinenrick, Bo Horvath. I think they have themselves a monster game and they win by multiple scores. Next up, we got Syracuse and Boston College. A lot of people are talking about this game because Syracuse is coming off a major comeback win against Virginia Tech at the Carrier Dome, which was a crazy game. They were down like 21-3. All my boys that are Q students left in the middle of the game because they were hungover from Halloween the following night or 2 nights ago, whatever it was. They were hungover. Syracuse then made a comeback, and they somehow ended up beating Virginia Tech in overtime. But they played Boston College this weekend. What are you thinking?
I think, despite Kyle McCord's game last week, he is going to come out of the gate and absolutely dominate. Him and LaQuinn Allen, along with his other receivers, I think they're absolutely going to destroy Boston College to improve to 7-2 this season.
I don't know about destroying. I'm expecting Syracuse to win. If the spread's 10, I'm taking Syracuse. I'm taking BC to cover the spread.
JJ, I'm telling you, this is their wake-up call. They're going to come out early because usually they come out flat, but this week I got a gut feeling they will turn it around and they will put up 28 in the first half.
Well, they have to because the problem is Clemson has 1 SEC loss. Pitt has 1 SEC loss. They're going to need these teams to lose at least 1 game.
ACC.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah.
Because Syracuse has to play Miami at the end of the season. That's going to determine whether they make it in or not, depending on what the other records are.
Is that in the dome or is it down in Miami? Is it in the dome? So if Syracuse got a shot, that place is going to be rocking.
With Miami fans, there's a lot of Canes fans up in the metro area. A lot of them. Next up, we've got Army against North Texas. Go on.
Be a whole lot of orange.
Give me your spiel in this one.
So Army is hoping to have Bryson Daly back this week. I know Jeff Monken was in the presser saying they're expecting him to play. If he doesn't, Dwayne Coleman's got to go out and do his job. They're gonna try to maybe switch, maybe do a little wildcat more often with Kanye Udo, as we saw in the Air Force game. But North Texas is also 5-3, so I think Army's got to come out and improve the 9-0.
I could see that. I really do, because I think Army's run game is so destructive. I'm expecting them to go out and put on a good show. Give me the Black Knights to improve to 9-0. This next game, I feel like it's pretty obvious. Iowa State's going to win this one against Kansas by about 4 scores. I don't even know why this game is featured. Next up is one of the first deep dives that I do want to talk about. Actually, wait, no, it's not this one. It's the next one. Clemson at Virginia Tech. This game, to me, is enticing because Clemson's coming off a loss. They're going into a hostile environment that is Lane Stadium. You know how rocking it gets in Blacksburg. That place is absolutely bananas. Virginia Tech's having a rough patch this season, but they've yet to get a statement win, and I'm expecting that to come sooner or later. So, honestly, give me the Hokies. Upset win over Clemson.
Clemson is favored by 6.5 points, but I really think this could go either way. I mean, both teams coming off a terrible loss. I mean, Virginia Tech was so close to beating Syracuse in the Dome. And of course, Clemson losing, but I don't know. I got a gut feeling, and I'm going with you. I think Virginia Tech trying to play, and Virginia Tech is going to be pretty hard. So I think Virginia Tech will be pulling that off.
And you know how they always do it against ranked opponents. Next up is the first deep dive that we're going to get into. Colorado versus Texas Tech. Now, to me, this game is very intriguing. It really is, if we're being honest, because this is a Colorado team. They're 6-2. They're looking really sharp. They could potentially get into the playoffs, for crying out loud. I know I want to puke just hearing that statement because I'm definitely anti-Colorado. No disrespect to the Colorado bandwagon fans that exist because there are not a single real Colorado fan in this area. But I think Texas Tech has a chip on their shoulder. They have a legit shot at making it to the conference championship because the Big 12 is just absolutely wide open. No one knows what's going to happen at this point. So I'm expecting things to get crazy in this one. And I'm going with Taj Brooks and Texas Tech.
I'm going to go with you on that one too. I think it's, pretty disrespectful. I mean, if I was on the Texas Tech team, I would be pretty upset about Colorado being favored 3.5. I know it doesn't sound a lot, but come on, Texas Tech hasn't had a bad year either, going 6-3, and they're like you said, they are trying to play for that conference championship game. So it's going to be a good one to watch.
One loss for Colorado, and they're 4-2 in the conference, and that would make things really interesting if Iowa State was to win out. But the next game that we're going to get into is another deep dive, South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Now, to me, this game is very enticing. Vanderbilt just got their first ever, I'm pretty sure this is their first ever win in Jordan-Hare. I think, honestly, ever. Because they have played so poorly in Auburn. Because they're never really known as a college football school. They're a college baseball school, which you should know very well. You probably tried to get into Vanderbilt once and got rejected about 100 times. But anyway, Vanderbilt is not really a college football school. Neither is South Carolina, to be fair. But South Carolina has always been competitive. Vanderbilt hasn't. Lenore Sellers coming off his best game of the season, along with Raheem Sanders, mauling Texas A&M. But if I know South Carolina, they win those games, and then they lose in humiliating fashion. So I'm going with Diego Pavia and the Commodores.
I'm going to roll with them, too. I told you, my respect for Vanderbilt and their whole team has really gone up after beating Alabama.
We've agreed on everything.
And beating Hugh Freeze 3 times in a row. I mean, Hugh Freeze is a great coach. And for him to do that is pretty, it's a pretty good feeling.
That's something special.
Something special, yeah. Say the least.
All right. Well, next game, we're going to save that for a little bit later. BYU and Utah. This game isn't worthy of a deep dive, but it is definitely one that is enticing to me, strictly because of the fact that we're dealing with the undefeated BYU is going into a trap game against Utah, the Battle of the Mormons. This game is very strange to me. I'm picking BYU, but Utah is going to cover.
And I agree with you that Retzloff, I've been watching him. He's been really doing his thing over there. And I think BYU will pull this out.
What's the spread on that game?
Spread is 4.
Yeah, I'm taking Utah to cover by 3. Next
right.
game on the docket, we completely forgot. There's 2 deep dives left, so we're going to go to those real quick as my thing moves incredibly slow. First deep dive, again, is Georgia Ole Miss. Now, this is a very good game. Georgia has a conference loss. Ole Miss has 2 conference losses. However, Ole Miss conference losses are much worse than Georgia's. You lost to LSU, and then you lost to Kentucky. I assume that game is haunting them, considering that they're 1-6 in the conference. 3-6 on the year. Here I was thinking Kentucky was going to be a sleeper. I sound like an absolute idiot now. But Georgia looked, in my honest opinion, Georgia looked terrible against Florida. Terrible.
I don't think it was just I think it was the whole team.
It was
from the quarterback to the safety on the defense. They were just not on the same page. And I mean, it's pretty hard. And I'll give them credit for the second half. It is pretty hard to win a game when first half you look like complete like you don't want to be there. And I'm surprised they pulled it off.
I really did not know what was going on watching Carson Beck that day. I mean, the dude was just absolutely awful.
Listen, you have those games, but I'll give him credit. He did really turn it around. Which you can't be doing that against a good SEC opponent, Ole Miss, who really had 2 bad losses. But besides that, they are a dangerous team.
The dude got significantly better as the game went on.
He did.
So the next thing that I do want to make note of is that Jackson Dart had by far his best game as an Ole Miss quarterback. I mean, what did he have? 500 all-purpose yards against against Arkansas?
I mean, he went off.
It was unbelievable how good they were. That was the hotty-toddy offense that I expected from Ole Miss. Putting up 63, 25 for 31, 515
yards.
6 touchdowns.
Absurd.
If I'm doing the math, he had a completion percentage of 80%. 81%, along with 500 yards passing. Like, are you kidding me, Jackson Dart?
He really made those Razorback fans pretty upset. I've been seeing memes of the one guy in the stands. He was pretty upset when they were getting absolutely obliterated.
I could imagine being an Arkansas fan watching that absolute embarrassment of a game. See, that's something that Ole Miss does. They will come out after they lose a game, and I'm noticing this when I look back at their schedule. They will come out after losing a game pissed off.
And that comes from the leadership, from the head coach to the captains, and they really let's say really brought each other together for the next week and just have that 1-0 mentality or 0-0 mentality entering that game to be 1-0 for that week.
Lane Kiffin's one of the best college coaches in the country. But I do feel like this is a tough game for Georgia going into Oxford, a raucous crowd at 3:30 p.m. But for some reason, I don't know what it is. There could be something wrong with the team. But the Dogs have the mentality at 3:30 p.m. I'm going with Georgia to win against Ole Miss by 2 scores.
Ooh. I love my upset, so I'm gonna roll with Ole Miss and Jackson Dart.
Wow! All right, I'm telling you what, I'm hoping for that, but I just don't see it happening. Now, the final game of the day, it is the game of the week, is LSU and Alabama. I will be going live for this game Saturday night.
Is this where College Game Day's at this week?
I believe so. Yeah,
I
think.
That's awesome.
Or it's in Oxford. Yeah, I will 100% be willing to have you on if you're down to do this game because Alabama LSU is going to be absurd. Good old SEC football. I'm expecting a battle. Now, Alabama is coming into this game, and they've been looking like they've been a strange team all year. but for some reason they've just really struggled going into Death Valley. Not this year. Not this year.
Years in the past.
I'm expecting Jalen Milroe to dominate. Give me Alabama.
I really don't know with this LSU team and with their quarterback. So and especially with Alabama too. But I've seen flashes of greatness from Alabama, and I'm gonna roll with them.
Roll Tide. I like it. All right, that should be it for our picks. As I figure out what the hell is going on with this, I hate when I have to do that. It gets pretty annoying. There we go. That is pretty much going to be it for this episode of College Football Frenzy. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Jay Seglio. He's Jake Marino. We're signing off.